Hey guys, so today we're going to return to one of our favorite, just wonderful friends, VarmitCoyote. And this is going to be one of the kind of response videos to response video exception. So let's just get straight into the video. I'm sorry, I love this guy.
Hi everybody! So, I want to talk about language policing.
And how you do it all the time.
If you haven't heard of Rez Please, do go check her out. She's so great. Oh my god, I can't.
I'm assuming that was for comedic effect. And, okay, it made me laugh, but not in the intended way.
So she made a video talking about, well...
Howdy, my people! Guess what? I'm a warrior!
See that face,
I mean, a social justice warrior? Well, okay, so here's the deal. I had always just considered myself like a hippie. I'm just a hippy-dippy girl who loves all the people and wants everybody to be treated the same. But apparently there is an actual word for that.
See, that's the problem I have. There's nothing wrong with just being kind of a hippie. There's nothing wrong with being liberal. There's nothing wrong with kind of not really attaching a label to yourself and just being accepting of people and not attaching a toxic ideology to it. But no, you have to call yourself a social justice warrior, of course.
These days, social justice warrior, which is pretty fucking badass if you ask me. I'm a goddamn warrior, y'all.
Oh, no. No!
Fucking A right. Social justice bard over here.
This is just one giant cringe fest. I can't deal with this.
I'm really very new to this whole sort of activism type thing. Like I said, I've always been very hippy-dippy, very lovey-lovey, very anti-racist.
Oh, look at you after virtue signal. You're anti-racist. What are you gonna be next? Anti-kicking puppies?
But I never really jumped into it full-heartedly. I just sort of lived my life that way.
Right? And I mean, it seems like the most natural progression in the world. I mean, you be a decent person, so when you get into politics, you realize people aren't treated the way they should be, so maybe we should do something about that.
What? So, you have to follow his specific ideology, and that's the only way to be a nice, decent person. Kill me.
This is very new for me, and I am so not perfect.
Oh, yeah, see, you're not expected to be. At least not by anybody who deserves to be taken seriously.
Oh, yeah, you're not expected to be perfect by social justice warriors, except you're only expected to believe in the wage gap, that you have to date people who are trans, that you have to believe that black people can't be racist. But no, you're not expected to be perfect.
As long as you're willing to grow, I think that's all anybody really cares about.
As long as you're willing to grow. He means as long as you're willing to adjust to the ideology.
And I know I am going to fuck up this SJW thing royally. Lots. I'm going to say the wrong things. I'm going to make the wrong jokes. I'm going to use the wrong words. I think maybe cunt I'm not supposed to say because it might be a sexist word. But I really like the word cunt. I sort of recently embraced the word cunt, and I think it's just a word. Y'all let me know if there's some inherent sexist reason why I shouldn't be using that word. And I'm going to put that across the board for all of the words and all of the jokes and all of the things that I will say in any of my videos. I am open to you guys letting me know if I am making a bad joke or if I'm saying a bad word, but I personally think language in many ways is overreacted to.
See, this is the thing here. I think she makes a very good point that people tend to get very touchy when it comes to language. And not just social justice warriors, I just notice this with people in general. But also, she is trying to police her own language by saying, oh, you guys let me know if there's something inherently sexist about the words I say, ha 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 ha. Just, oh, shut up.
Especially when it's a word that is a general word that isn't about like a specific group of people and has always been considered an insult against that specific group of people. I do make exceptions for those words and do not use those words, but in my mind, like every other word is fair game.
See, and I don't think any reasonable person would disagree.
The problem with that, VarmitCoyote, is that you're not a reasonable person.
That what makes a word appropriate or not to use in a given context is precisely that, context, which is what you're talking about. That was why I linked to this article in the comments underneath Rez's video, because I think it well addresses a lot of the general concerns around language policing. That eliminating certain words from usage was never the goal of discussions about language. Asking people to examine their attitudes was the goal of these conversations.
Two things. First of all, he's reading off an article. He's not adding any of his own original stuff. I think it's just because he's brainwashed. He just reads off stuff that he happens to like. Second of all, this is the problem I have with the whole language thing. They say, oh, it's not about the words themselves, it's about the attitudes you have behind the words. What if you don't have those attitudes? What if you don't intend anything behind those words? Because they act like, oh, even if you don't think you intend, you must intend those things. Because society, even if you don't mean to be racist, you must be racist. Because society. No, what if you're just not racist?
Words aren't the problem. The oversimplification of the language debate means that many people think that activism stops with avoiding certain words and just substituting in new things. But the point was never to create tools people could use to derail and ignore important conversations. You used a bad word, so I don't have to listen to anything you just said. It was to get people to examine the casual and deeply embedded attitudes in their society, to ask people to explore the way language has influenced their own attitudes as well as those around them. I've been screamed at and called a hypocrite because I call myself crazy, for example, by people who seem to believe that this word is inherently bad and wrong and shouldn't be used ever, despite the fact that some crazy people find it empowering and healing to use this label, to apply it to ourselves, to take it back from the people who've tried to label us with it. I'll be happy to debate whether I'm allowed to call myself crazy when all crazy people have access to safe, stable, non-judgmental health care from focused, attentive care providers. When all crazy people aren't at risk from being murdered or assaulted simply for being crazy. When all crazy people aren't marginalized and ignored by most of society. When all crazy people have full, equal rights. Until then, I'm Emperor of Crazy Town, and you're going to have to deal with it.
What? I'm so confused here with this bit here. So, the writer of the article is talking about taking back the term crazy because I'm mentally ill and I want to take it back as an empowering term, which I totally understand. Like, I understand with taking back the word tranny, for example. But then people in the trans community get so upset when you try to take back the word tranny. I don't get the hypocrisy. You can take back one word but not the other. Why? Why can't you? And then they have to add in, oh, well, there's not good mental health care. And then we can debate whether I can take back the word crazy. What? What does that have to do with anything? Sure, there's not good mental health care. But what does that have to do with anything?
Because the problem here isn't the word, but the underlying attitude that the word symbolizes.
Why do you keep talking about these underlying attitudes? Yes, when people use words in a negative context, yes, then it does signify an underlying attitude. But that's not about society. That's about them. If somebody, for example, calls a gay person a faggot in a negative context, then yes, that does signify that they're probably homophobic. But that's about the person calling them a faggot. That's not about society. That's about them. Like, these people don't understand. They're like, no, it's about society, and even if you don't mean to say something a certain way, you're still bigoted because society. No.
And it's also relevant to note that this isn't a problem exclusively inside of social justice circles, but that most people in general have a problem of too flippantly judging other people on superficial grounds. In this case, judging a person's entire character based on a few words they've used without knowing who they are.
Oh, the lack of self-awareness here. He's talking about societal things, and he's talking about what people say and how they must be bigoted because society. And then he's saying, oh, look at these people, how people in general will judge people based on a few words they've said. Oh, the lack of self-awareness. Oh, I just love it.
Not to mention the fact that in the first place, it shouldn't be about you. It shouldn't be a matter of trying to judge an individual's character. It should be a matter of the impact that that person is having. The problem with bigotry isn't a personal character issue.
Yes, it is. That is what bigotry is. That it totally is. Of course it is a personal character issue. How's it not? How's it not? Bigotry is something like, yes, of course, obviously you can be a bigot based on your personal experiences. Say, I don't know, every black person you ever met stole from you, or every white person you ever met was violent, and then you grow up thinking a stereotype like, oh, all black people steal, or oh, all white people are going to be school shooters or something. Even if it's based off your own personal experiences and you have evidence, quote unquote, to think that, that's still your own personal character issue. And even if that's something that a society thinks, like, I don't know, in the Jim Crow days, when there were general really racist attitudes against black people, that's still a character issue if you're really racist against black people. I don't care if your society is racist against black people. It is still your decision and your character that is racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever. He's acting like it's not people's fault that they're bigoted, which is funny, because if you're gonna stop bigotry, wouldn't it make sense to blame the people who are bigots? Just a thought.
Like, we have to fix the moral fiber of individuals. It's great to altruistically care about them individually, sure, but when we're talking about social issues, it's about the impact that that person is having with their participation in the culture.
So you're saying it should be about how a bigot impacts their culture. Okay, but how does a bigot impact their culture, really? I mean, think about a bigot, say, in Western society today. A bigot that you might support, like the Black Lives Matter girl who was like, there's a lot of white people up on the stage, even though she was able to derail a vigil and talk in front of a lot of people. She didn't have a huge impact on culture. She just talked in front of some people, even though she had a lot of influence. So even the bigots with a lot of influence don't have a huge impact on our culture. He's acting like all of America is going to listen to one bigot and that's going to, like, influence people. Honestly, what is the impact you're talking about? Because I'm really missing out on something here.
I mean, you mentioned this in the comments of your video, that you adore language, and I do too. And I think that's kind of the point here, that many of us, whether intentionally or not, are weaponizing our language.
I haven't heard of anybody who weaponizes language. Words are not violence, but you know what you are trying to use and are trying to quote-unquote weaponize, although of course it's not violence? Your policing of language.
And we should think about that.
The whole point of this video is to say, I'm trying, okay? This is the first that I have ever really gotten into this realm. I've been in politics for a while, but this is the first I'm really getting into like the social issue realm and voicing my opinions about it and like trying to become part of the conversation. And I do want to become a part of the conversation, but I'm also not going to try and bend myself into something that I'm not, in the hopes that I never offend anyone.
And that's a great principle to live by. Nobody should do that, because that's what makes you a super PC person, and nobody wants to be that. Or nobody should be that, but of course VarmitCoyote is going to be like, you should be that.
Because I think that is a little bit too extreme.
I think you're being way too nice when you put it that way. But I don't think offense was ever the issue. In our interpersonal relationships, as a matter of mutual respect, you can speak a certain way around individuals, but the issue in this case isn't about offense for individuals, but systemic harm.
Oh god, so he's saying, oh no, bending yourself over to not offend anyone, you shouldn't do that because you don't want to offend individual people. You should do that because you don't want to systemically harm people. How do words systemically harm people? How?
No one can be expected to not offend anybody. And in the first place, the concept of offense has been bastardized by our entire generation.
You mean by you? Because you get offended by everything?
Especially on the internet, because of this you mad bro culture of acting like you're unaffected by things as a means of feeling superior over other people. It's just so toxic and contributes to us acting like bullies towards each other.
So not getting offended contributes to bullying. Nice logic, 10 out of 10.
And so yeah, but what matters in this context is the social issue, not the offense. And so, what you mentioned, that you're willing to learn, is what I think matters.
So he thinks it matters that she said that she's willing to learn, so he's willing to indoctrinate her.
And people who ignore that are the people that you should be ignoring when they try and call you out on shit. Long days and pleasant nights.
So yeah, that was this awful video. So I think what that woman, even though she wanted to be a social justice warrior, I think what she was saying was well-intentioned. You know, she said, oh, I don't want to bend over backwards to not offend anyone, which is a good principle to have. But he was like, oh no, you should, because you don't want to systemically harm anyone. How? I don't get it. I don't get how words systemically harm groups of people. I don't understand. And he was saying, like, bigots have systemic impacts, and you shouldn't see it as a character flaw. You should see an impact on the entire culture and society. How? How does one bigot, or even a group of bigots, like, even if it's a terrorist organization of people who are bigoted against a certain group, that's impact on the group. I mean, it'd take a lot for them to have an impact on the culture. Maybe like the KKK in the Jim Crow times, but now, not really. I really don't get what he's saying. But yeah, that was VarmitCoyote again with his pure idiocy. At least he wasn't talking about his quote-unquote being trans. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.
On feel the funk blast.